All right, I'm here with my friend Joshua Saffron, Pastor Joshua Saffron, is youth pastor at Faith Point Church in Killeen, Texas. Do you mind just telling us a little bit about your history as a leader?
Yeah, I grew up in the church. We grew up together. It's pretty cool. Did a lot of things like that, but eventually God and the pastor saw it fit that I join his team. Awesome. And on ministry staff. Been there for about 2.5 years, going on 3. Really exciting, really fun. Do a lot of in ministry. We do a lot of leading volunteers.
Yeah.
Putting things together that people want to do.
Definitely.
And it's interesting in marketplace ministry. You kind of have a captive audience sometimes.
Yeah.
But we have to make them want to be there. So
Sure.
it's a struggle, but it's really fun and really challenging.
Cool.
So,
how old were you when you first came on staff? Whether it would be as a pastor or maybe as just the director of it.
I was 21. I had just turned 21. I think, or it was right before my 21st birthday, about a month or two. I always thought that it would be. Pastors had to be over 30 because all the pastors I knew were over 30.
Right.
And so I was kind of bummed. I had a call into ministry and I wasn't able to do it because I wasn't 30.
Right.
So, your dad called me into his office and said, "Hey, I'd like you to consider this and pray about it." And I was like, "Wow, this is way faster than I." And so it shattered what I thought God could do in my life.
That's amazing.
That was cool. So I became the director, I guess you'd call it, of the youth ministry in our church, and I did that for about a year, maybe 9 months or so, as under that title. Then I was ordained and through the Full Gospel Fellowship, and
Awesome.
Just went from there.
Very cool. What are some of the biggest obstacles, being a young minister, leading students, doesn't matter what age you are, leading students is difficult, ministry is difficult,
Right.
Marketplace ministry, as you mentioned, is difficult. What are some things that, uniquely to your circumstance, that you've had to overcome?
I would say, let's start off by saying the church that I work at is very supportive of young people, young ministers. Actually, they're more supportive of young ministers than the older ones.
That's awesome.
It's a little backwards,
we're used to.
And that has its own challenges. But so it's a blessing. Now, what's interesting being over kids is that kids. I'm 24. I took over when I was 21. I was in school with most of them. I graduated when most of them were coming into high school. So
Right.
we were not buddies, but we considered ourselves as peers.
Right.
And so it was a challenge.
Yeah.
It was definitely a challenge because they knew who I was at one point. They knew who I was, but the cool thing was they knew how God changed my life.
That's awesome.
But the real challenging thing was to get past that point of
develop a rapport with them.
Yeah, to be a spiritual influence in their life rather than just somebody they looked up to, but somebody that actually had authority.
Gotcha.
And so it took a while. Most youth pastors they have to work on building relationships with kids.
Gotcha.
And having influence on a more personal level.
Gotcha.
See, I had that. I didn't have the influence on a leadership level,
Gotcha.
on an authority level. And so it took a little while, but there were certain things that helped me go further in that area, in the authority area. It sounds really bad, but that's what I was lacking.
Sure.
So
Well, you got to develop it at some point, right?
yeah, and so it's a little backwards, I guess, but
Whatever.
it's